We do have a question from Josh Kirk in the chat. Good evening, mates, but can you explain why the EU has no advantage?
Political advantage comes from the EU being able to say the prodigal son returned. That is a massive political advantage, given that they are suffering some, headwinds from other parts of Europe that want to think they might want to leave. So the prodigal son returning is the political advantage, and I would say that's priceless. You can't put a number on it.
What do you think it will take for us, our side of the aisle to stop being so about not being angry and not appearing this way? I'm sick to death of this optics bullshit. And what will it take for us to move from there to, demanding accountability in real time? If the last few weeks have shown anything, is that if Andrew Mountbatten Windsor can lose his title as a royal for being linked to Epstein, to me, in my opinion, any MP, particularly prime ministers, are all fair game.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that question. It has a very long answer. I'll try and do a short one on it so we can get more questions in. Remainers are by nature. I'm not when I bashed them a moment ago about their foibles about why we can't rejoin. The nice side of that is they're really nice people. Really, they are the sort of people
They're
that
not
go
nice.
to a protest and sit with cucumber sandwiches. They don't smash hotels and things like that. And embedded in that strength is a great weakness of people who are not prepared to stand up and be counted. So my answer is it's embedded in the psyche of the Remainers to be steadily progressive, to need evidence, to be cautious, to be patient. They have, of course, been told by the major movements that now is not the time, which means that anything I say, it falls on deaf ears as well, generally. The people probably in this meeting are the people who believe that we could expect better. But the vast majority of the people I deal with online, they think we're just going to have to wait till 2040. And I have made this argument to a Labour MP who said that in 2013 we'll rejoin. And my answer simply to him, and he didn't have an answer to this, was by that time, all of the damage will be done. Much of it will be irreversible. And even I will say, and where will be the movement in 2032 of people wanting to rejoin? Because there isn't one now. If you play that forward another 5, 7 years, there'll be no one cares about it or able to join up their lived experience with Brexit as a cause. It's hard enough to do that now. It'll be impossible in 2032.
Peter, sorry about that. Just it kind of answers my question, but what I'm trying to ask is, how do we get ourselves to? Because I think, I was basically being term police in the chat earlier, about coming off as angry. How do we get our side to move beyond and all of that bullshit? Because I'm sick to death of it. I'm sick to death of being told be the bigger person, change hearts and minds, and oh, maybe give them a blowjob and they'll like you or some bullshit like that.
Can I make a very basic point?
Yeah.
It doesn't get stressed enough that the Leave side broke the law during the referendum.
Exactly this, and we have
all
evidence
this nonsense about it, be will of the people and all that. Well, a vote in which one side is allowed to break the law with impunity is not a valid vote. Simple as that.
Why is nobody making a point of that? And
well, yeah, but I mean, it's been proven. I mean, the two of the Leave groups paid fines because they were found guilty of breaking electoral law. I mean, I don't see what more you need, basically.
The final question I've got on that is, given that the MPs knew about it, that the law was broken, and yet still decided to trigger Article 50, isn't that straight up public office misconduct? Like you're as an MP, you're legally obliged to uphold the law, especially as a minister. So as far as I'm concerned, whoever voted to trigger Article 50, and they did it in defiance of a court order, meaning that we should be demanding they be forced into jail for this. If Andrew Mountbatten Windsor can lose his title, all of these people are fair game.
Got that. Okay. Well, I believe that we spend far too much time obsessing about the past, and Gavin is right. The lawyers have demonstrated their work. What most of the Remainers I see online are doing are saying, "Oh, Nigel, no, we got to go over there." In doing so, all they're doing is amplifying Nigel's strategy, unless they're very, very clever, and some of them are. So I think led by donkeys are very good at undoing Nigel's work, but lots of other people amplify his work because the people I meet here who are Nigel fans, and I meet a lot of them, they love nothing more than the salty tears of the Remainers. So when we go, we hate Nigel, they love it. It recruits people, I think. So I think we spend 80% of time on Nigel and things like Nigel, and not enough time on persuading politicians that we need to rejoin, which is why I still bother, or have still bothered, with the books. This is my last stand, really. So yes, we do need to make a bit more noise about the legalities of it, but going backwards isn't going to help us go forwards.
It is a retrospective argument, but I think the argument that a vote in which one side is allowed to break the law is not a valid vote.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
quite as simple as that.
And
And so
As demonstrated by the Supreme Court, had it been anything other than sort of voluntary, it wouldn't have passed muster.
yeah, and there's a case before the ECHR at the moment, actually, that the British government is breaching our human rights and not investigating Russian interference.
But that raises yet another point, that we don't have a coherent movement. We have what I've likened to Indonesia, 17,000 tiny islands with one or two big ones, and they're all actually pursuing different goals. There's the people that want the vote restored. There's people that say we have to have single market customs union, which John Curtis points out is a far more difficult move than rejoin, in terms of the public gaze upon that. Some people think we've got to have referendums and this and that. There is no coherence in the vision. There never has been, and I'm not going to change that in my lifetime. I've tried. I offered free organisational work with the European movement and other groups in 2020, and they wanted to carry on their own trajectory. So we don't have that organisational stuff either. With a lack of coherence in strategy and leadership and collaboration, we can't do. All we are left with is what we can each do.
Regards to sort of immigration and refugees, once you rejoin, is it easy to rejoin the Dublin Convention? If we rejoin the Dublin Convention, how are we going to deal with, say, Ukrainians who would wish to either stay in the UK or go back to Ukraine?
Well, if we rejoin properly, then we reset to where we were before, and all of that comes as part of the package. What has changed, of course, is Keir Starmer and the government are praying at Nigel Farage's altar by trying to be tougher than Nigel on immigration and the causes of immigrants. And I didn't put the algorithm up, but there is a video that explains in 2 minutes as to why, we should develop safe routes, and they are beginning to get round to that. But at the moment, Shabana Mahmood is trying to look out Farage. I suspect that they'll forget about this in a few months' time. Actually, I'm not sure this is a long-term thing. I don't know what this idea of taking people's jewelry is beyond shame. I mean, it's
they copy what Denmark is doing, actually.
Yeah, we've been here before in 1930s Germany, or 1940s Germany, I should say. And they're repeating that experiment. And in doing so, they're not causing Farage's voters to want to vote Labour, because they've got in their head, they've got Rachel from Accounts, Starmageddon, and all these other pieces of codswallop stuck in there. I'm not a Labour supporter, by the way, so I can, so they're not going to move across the floor from Farage to Starmer because they out Farage. At the same time, they're really annoying a lot of people on our side who think it's immoral and indecent. So I don't know what they're playing at that, really. Tinkering with the Dublin Agreement, the ECHR, and all those things are what I call death by 1,000 ameliorations. If we rejoin, we rejoin on the terms that exist to join the club, of which the Dublin Agreement would presumably be part of that.
Just one observation, Peter, and also Sam. In Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, they have had an open door policy for Ukrainian refugees, which works for the most part. But when they arrive at whatever port they arrive in, they're asked, "Where are you from Ukraine?" Yes, they're let in. But in the last 2 to 3 weeks, the Irish government has relocated some of these so-called Ukrainian refugees. They were actually Belarusian nationals who jumped on and just joined the crowd coming over to the Republic of Ireland, but they've actually begun to start catching them. It's difficult to do, and shipping them back. So much the same as the UK has been trying to do with getting immigrants that are illegal out of the country and back to where they came from. Now that's with Dublin Convention in place. So it's because they're so open to, once all you have to do is say, in a voice that they think might come from that part of the world, I'm from Ukraine, I need help, or I need asylum. And they're having a difficult problem now weeding out who is and who isn't, because the doors have been so open. I know Peter has got a workflow for that, which looks very greatly at how immigration could be assessed. It does need staffing. It does need people to work together to make it work. But it's a lot better, I think, even with the limited success it's having in Ireland, than what the UK has currently, unfortunately.
I'll add to that question in case you haven't seen the algorithm here. This is the thing. I produced it 2 years ago for when whichever Tory Home Office minister was there. I think it carried through. And there's a 2-minute explainer video. But the algorithm, Labour have adopted some of this, to be fair to them. 90% of them at that time were legal. So all you need to do down the left-hand side is to go, what are you good at? We need those people in Gateshead. You're going there, and you need to learn the language, and you need to be properly inducted so you can do well in our country, pay your taxes, and so and so. So that, unfortunately, isn't going to deal. Shabana Mahmood's thing is not going to deal with any of those because they're all legal. The illegal 10%-ish, if they're mass murderers, go to prison, go home. If they've got a parking offence in Dubai, then probably they're in the good pile. The problem comes is many of them have been told to come undocumented. And I would say if you're undocumented, you have to go in the we don't know pile. And word would soon get back that people would have to come documented. That doesn't deal with the backlog, but a lot of people don't fit into this split currently, which is why the Home Office are taking so long, plus Home Office inefficiency. There, I've said it. I never thought I'd agree with Donald Trump and Doji, but there we are. They don't want to fix the problem, or they didn't want to fix the problem under the Conservatives. I get the impression the Home Office still would rather not have any people other than people from home.
Since the Brexit started, and also the end of COVID, I've been traveling in and out of the continent via Eurostar and stuff. And what I've seen that since Brexit, and also sort of comparing what's happening here in the British Isles and in the continent, there isn't any sense of optimism. It's all very negative. It's practically countries which are close to my heart, like Denmark. I have family there. Denmark is talking tough on immigration. Germany's talking tough on immigration. France is talking tough on immigration. I'm not saying that tough on immigration is wrong. If it's illegal, people are not here legally. They must be dealt with by the law. But the trouble is that since Brexit, everyone's talking like Nigel Farage. Everyone's talking like AfD or Marine Le Pen or some of the right-wing parties, or even Viktor Orban. So it's there's no sense of optimism. And that gives the open door to people like Vladimir Putin. His invasion of Ukraine in 2022, he certainly has exploited this this hole. And I keep saying to a lot of my British friends that who enjoys the benefit of Brexit is Vladimir Putin. That's my thought.
I'm old enough to remember waves of racism in the 70s, the sort of late 80s, and they're often marked by developments in pop music. So Ghost Town by the Specials in the 1980s marked a particular down point in this debate, and in the 1970s as well. It seems to come back every few decades, and we're at the peak of it. And politicians want to be elected, so therefore they respond to such things. So they have lurched a bit to the right, some of them more than others. And frankly, Keir Starmer is afraid of Donald Trump, I think. So, and Donald Trump is not a helpful influence in the world. And so it isn't just what we think of, the despotic countries like North Korea and Russia that are down on these things. In our own backyard in the States, I mean, it's absolutely terrible. What I do know is it will come good again because people will suddenly, it'll burn itself out. But they have, amplified by the populist media, sort of made this a key concern. Even Channel 4 repeated it last night that a key concern was immigration. I never hear it in a pub. I hear people talking about the fact they can't buy a pint of beer, on people begging on the streets. I hear all that. I don't hear people regularly talking, muttering in the high street, it'd be all right if it weren't for these bloody immigrants. I don't hear that. And so it will go again, but we are at a moment like that, and all governments have to try and hold their citizens together. And it's not clever, but I understand why they do it, is what I'm saying.
I think the main things are we need to we need to control the narrative on this. And I think to do that, we need to be united and we need to stop giving a fuck about the feelings of bigots because they want us dead. And quite frankly, I want a world where justice prevails. Then there's something else about crime, and it always seems that the right are able to frame it and be seen as tough on crime. Why are we not willing to retake the narrative, retake the terms, and say, okay, yeah, we'll be tough on crime, white collar crime. People like Elon Musk, Nigel Farage, Vladimir Putin, Boris Johnson, all these people are white collar criminals. Throw them in jail. We need to be, and we need to stop trying to be so kumbaya and all this. What is our mission? What is our vision? What we're going to do to exploit it? And the other thing is we need to talk about this, make this a legal argument. And the final thing I've got is how do we get our side to become more, from a mental perspective, more pugnacious and understand what is actually at stake, rather than thinking that you can reason with these people. They are not reasonable.
I spoke with lady what's Sally, I forget the Lib Dem. I spoke with a Lord on this subject in the Lib Dems a while ago, and I said the Lib Dems have the problem of being undeniably nice. And I said you can be pugnacious or forceful and still nice. And I said, I think you have a problem. This is abso-bloody-lutely, she said. So I think Ed Davies grabbed that piece now. I think there's a piece in the book where I talk about serious fun. He never lets the press get away with just a stunt unless there's a message with it, because the message is far more important than the thing that attracts the press to the message. So I think the Lib Dems are doing a very good job at attracting attention and putting some hard points in. And I'm not just being sympathetic to the Lib Dems. The Greens are doing an even better job. I just wonder whether the Greens will be held together by Zach Palance, because they have the same problem as Labour, as being quite a mixed bag of components. But anyway, Palance's out Farage on a number of areas, and we need to learn how to do that. I'm available to teach people to do it because I do it quite regularly on the radio. But now the downside, you can't change the nature of the Remainers. You're talking about genetic modification of them. They're just nice, and they don't see it as within their self-image to be pugnacious or any of that. They think, and they've been told and reinforced lots of times, that the best way to deal with difficult people is to kill them with kindness, or even worse, to ignore them. And so many Remainers that say, oh, I've talked to them before, and they don't listen. Well, you have to invest time in the preparation, and that's really the realm of the book I wrote on Brexorcism, which is a therapeutic approach to the problem. So I don't, and the other thing is the other level of this is we haven't got this coherent organizational structure. We haven't got this common messaging. And I work in real life as an organization development consultant for companies that have lost the power of reason. You cannot change culture in 5 minutes. You might take years to do this. And I've been nibbling away at them for years, and they don't want to listen. And you can't convert an alcoholic into a non-alcoholic unless they want to listen and they acknowledge that they're an alcoholic. And we generally think that we're doing a very good job, and we are. but I don't think it's necessarily an effective job always. And people pick the easy picks. They do the efficient things in life, which is to moan on social media, to put a picture of Nigel Farage up and say, I hate him. That's not, it's efficient because it's quick. It's not effective always. So I'd urge you to find more people wherever you are and do more of this kind of stuff. And there's lots of things you can do. Sending books to MPs is more effective than bleating letters because you can delete an email really quickly. We got the gig in Somerset out of sending the book to MPs, not just my book or any book, but doing personalized letters really does count. The more letters they get about a subject, that really helps. We can't wait for elections to happen, and so on and so forth. Working on parliamentary paralysis is probably number one thing I think that works. Working on mainstream media to change the diet of what people receive at 7 o'clock at breakfast is also important because they believe what they read with their breakfast. And the Daily Mail and et al. Even the Daily Mail are now moaning, saying that Shabana was mentally cruel by taking away people's jewellery. So they're pivoting away from their previous position. So it's interesting. And they only want to sell newspapers, let's be honest. They don't care what their readers think. So that's happening. But to conclude with a bittersweet statement, I've got a book on the shelf here, a book on therapy. It's called The Situation is Hopeless, but not serious. And it talks about the pursuit of unhappiness. So our situation is a bit hopeless, but it's not serious if we do something about it. And that doing is the thing that will make the difference of getting under the skin of MPs, getting under the skin of media, getting on LBC or wherever you can get on and changing minds. And then at the granular level, talking to these Leave people in the way that you can and being gentle on them, but tough at the same time. It's what therapists call tough love. And talking to the Remainers and making sure they're not say, I'd love to do it, but my cat's ill. That matters as well.